3 schoolhouses in the Buxton Settlements grounds. It was the one built in North Buxton for the students in this area to receive their education. The education that was taught here was the classical education that Reverend William King received growing up. This advanced education taught Greek, Latin, advanced arithmetic, advanced English, advanced mathematics, anything that I would have flown to school, taught at this schoolhouse. As you guys notice, it is a one-room schoolhouse, so they go from the smallest desk on the left to the largest on the right. We do only have 7 rows of desks in here currently, but at the peak of the schoolhouse, it would have had a full 10 rows for the grades 1 through 10 students, taught under one schoolroom professor, and they would have, at the peak of this schoolhouse, taught up to 100 students at once.
Wow.
The reason for that is it was fully integrated, so all the class photos you'll see are many faces of different races throughout 10 different grade levels that would have been learning in the same school, the same education. And that was an opportunity that was special at the time because not a lot of schools would have been integrated. This school became very popular because of that fact, as well as the advanced education. And this allowed for a lot of successful alumni to graduate from the schoolhouse. At the end, I'm going to mention one with the wheelchair at the front. What I would like to quickly mention is you will notice that we do have the students' rules of conduct as well as the rules for the teachers on the board here. They are written in cursive. The students' rules 1 through 8 are from 1861 and lasted all the way up until close 107 years later in 1968. And those rules state from top to bottom that students will not speak unless spoken to. There will be no giggling, whispering, or squirming in the desks. Proper language will be used at all times when speaking. Male students will remove all headgear before entering the building. We will abide by the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Students will assume good posture. Feet will be on the floor and hands will be folded on top of the desk. And when not working, students should face forward at all times. When you wish to speak, you must raise your hand, wait until recognized, and then stand beside your desk before speaking. And the final rule states that at all times, scholars behave as young ladies and gentlemen. Those were the rules that kept these students in line. For those who didn't follow the rules, the most common form of punishment was the strap. And it was a very close-knit community, so as you mentioned, you would probably get it worse at home had your parents already heard that you got it at school. As far as the teachers' rules go, these are a bit more ridiculous, believe it or not, and that's because they are from 1872, but they are also with the expectations of that time period amongst the role. So they wanted to keep the teacher's role viewed and respected in the community. I'll read a couple of these rules here just to save time. Some of them mention things as male teachers may take 1 evening each week for courting purposes, or 2 evenings a week if they attend church regularly. After 10 hours in the school, the teacher may spend the remaining time reading the Bible or other good books. The rules of church and the Bible are because it was a Christian-based education. This next rule I find pretty funny. It says that female teachers will be dismissed of their duties if they are to get married or engage in unseemly conduct. On the board here, we do have the teachers throughout the years of the SS13 rally, male and female teachers. About 90% of the teachers on this board were formerly students at the schoolhouse, so they did heavily rely on some of these alumni to come back and teach the same education they had received growing up. The reason I like to pick up the board after mentioning the rule of the female teachers, however, is because in the bottom right here, the second last listed, Fern Shreve, she's actually my great-grandmother, and she was a female teacher at this schoolhouse. Instead of being dismissed for her duties after being married and teaching my grandfather here, she was actually promoted to the principal and later on a superintendent of the school board.
Wow.
And that'll be my little personal connection to the tour itself. I'm nowhere near the level of educator she is, so please don't ask me any school-related questions. With that being said, it was a very advanced education, so the last 2 things I'd like to do, I'm going to read out a passage here that was taught. I usually do have a guessing game to go with it, but since we are running a little bit shorter on time, I am just going to mention up front, this was a grade 4 spelling passage from 1879 in the schoolhouse. I'm not sure if you guys remember the education you were learning in grade 4, I don't myself, but you could compare that if you do remember. If not, then I guess you're just going to be a bit mind blown at what they would have been spelling back in grade 4. With that being said, the passage reads as follows. These men, Republicans from civility, who published rhetorical panegyrics on massacres, and who reduced plunder to a system of ethics, are as ready to preach slavery as anarchy. Had you come to grade 4 Bradley with that same spelling passage, I probably would have been sent all the way back to grade 1. But again, if nothing else, it does advocate for how advanced the education was at this schoolhouse. I don't have a spelling passage for the older grades, but considering that they were learning Greek and Latin here, you could have actually expected to be translated from different languages as well. If you were wondering what happened to grade 11 and 12 for post-secondary education, there was no need for that, as this certification actually stated that it was actually equivalent of receiving your first year of university level of education if you had completed the grade 10 in this classroom. So again, a very advanced education, a great opportunity for these students. As Reverend William King had to pay for this education, it was taught at this schoolhouse for free. So a great opportunity. And the last thing I'd like to leave you guys with for this portion of the tour, you guys may have noticed the wheelchair and the leg brace at the front there. I'm just gonna make my way to the back. And I'd like to tell a quick story, and I like to wrap up my tours with this story because it ends on an important note. At the back of the classroom here, we do have a photo from this class specifically from 1909, 1910. And it mentions a couple things that we checked out throughout this tour. The first thing you'll notice off face value of the image from 1909, 1910 is the class is fully integrated, as I mentioned. So many faces of different races. An impressive thing to point out, despite the young males in the appearance there, in the black suit, that is actually the professor of this schoolhouse. His name is George Cromwell. But the reason I bring your attention to this photo specifically is for the young lady seated in the bottom left in the wheelchair there. Her name is Lillian Shriek. She wasn't born with polio. Unfortunately, she had a disease similar where she had lost her ability to walk at a very young age. At the start, when she started to lose her ability to walk, the schoolhouse would start to carry her to these classes, and then later on start to build these wheelchairs for her, such as the one at the front and the one in the image. Neither are replicas, they are both used by her. And they did that so that she could receive the same education that they were receiving growing up, so that she had access to this building. She went on to many successes in her life, despite being discriminated against not only for being black, as well as a woman, but also for having a disability. She went on into the state of New York to work closely in a secretarial role for Marcus Garvey, a very popular Jamaican activist. So again, she went on to many successes in her life. I mentioned that at the end of the tour for two reasons. The first, if I had a longer time, I'd probably sound like a broken record at this point, but to show how advanced the education was at this schoolhouse, but also, more importantly, to show how reliant this community was. There's a lot of credit to give to Reverend William King for purchasing this land and bringing these settlers and giving them an opportunity for their future generations to actually provide for themselves and settle in a safe settlement. But it is also a lot of credit to give to the people who came to this community. Stories like the Liberty Bell, where they would bring resources and bring labor for those people who were getting in the community for the first time. They would have gardens at the front of their cabins to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining so that they could provide for their communities. They'd help each other build up the homes. And they even went as far as building wheelchairs so that their classmates could receive the same education as them. So if anything else, the message I would like to leave for this tour is this was a very reliant community. They did help one another, and that is how it became such a successful settlement to become one of the most successful settlements in Ontario. So with that, that is the end of the guided portion of the tour. So thank you guys so much for your time today.